just rewatched that interview with him
Mm.
and a separate interview I did with his wife, Erica. Crying again about 5 minutes ago watching it, because one of the things I talked about with Erica was her love of her husband, which is rooted in faith, and how she tried to do everything in her power every single day to submit to him in the Christ-like way in order to help him come home, be comfortable with his children, with her, so he could go out and fight and try to make this country better, not just for their kids, but for this entire country, all of our children. My time with Charlie and his wife it's changed me in so many ways. It's made me a better person because their fearlessness and their faith is what led him to go to these college campuses and to try to give these youngsters a voice. And what he did was beautiful.
You talked to him about, and in that interview, about the impact that he had. He started Turning Point USA after he dropped out of college at age 18. This is a force, a political force that he has built. We just had a Democratic activist on the show a few minutes ago who said we envied what he built because it was so effective.
Well, that makes me happy to hear. And I think if people just use common sense and step back, if you don't have to like what he said or what he believed in, but look at the way he did it, right? It was his messaging, but also, Elizabeth, he stood for what we all say we stand for, but not all people do it. That is to have diversity of thought, to have a conversation. He would go on these campuses and allow these kids to feel heard, to have a voice, let them speak first, and then respond with facts, with opinions, whatever it may be. But these are the same kids that were denounced by Kamala Harris and by Hillary Clinton, and we remember what they said about them. So give him credit, as that Democrat said, for going there and trying and having a conversation. I have 3 college-age kids. It is because of Charlie Kirk that they began to care about learning, not about agreeing with everything he said, because I have 3 kids with very different opinions, but to educate themselves. And that is all that he wanted. But every part of him was rooted in his faith. And that is what inspired me. I'm blown away by that. And I'm also comforted by that, Elizabeth, because I know that that is what is going to make it eventually, that Erica's going to be okay because of her faith in God and where she knows her husband is right now. But I know that there's millions of people now who are like, enough. We cannot live in fear. We cannot be silent, because that is what the evil people, like the person who shot him and tried to kill Donald Trump, and unfortunately so many other evil people in this country, they want to scare us into submission, to be silent. And because he was winning, because he won, because of the impact he had, they wanted him dead, and they succeeded. But his message is going to live forever.
To be clear, we don't know anything yet about the shooter or the motive behind the shooting, but the governor of Utah is calling it a political assassination. I want to get, you just talked about the fact that you have 3 college-age kids. I have 2, and every single person I've spoke to who has kids in high school or college has said that their kids were texting or calling them today, even, you know, across the political spectrum. Donald Trump credited Charlie Kirk for helping him win the election because he was able to attract younger voters. He has, you know, for everybody, you know, of all ages are expressing a lot of incredibly felt statements of agony and remorse tonight over what's happened to him. But what can't be understated is how many people in that sort of 18 to 28-year-old demographic really knew him, really followed him, and really got interested in politics because of him.
Yes, yes. We looked it up earlier today, that demographic, that voting demo, 18 to 29, that turned 20% from Democrats to Republicans to Donald Trump in November of 2024. That is massive. I've been saying for 2 years that he is one of, in my opinion, one of the most influential Americans ever because of that, because he chose to go into talk to that group that everybody else was largely ignoring, and because he was smart enough, Elizabeth, to see what was happening on social media, to see what was happening on TikTok, and the messaging that was being pushed from the far left, these crazy ideologies. And he's like, wait a minute, we have to at least give them another perspective, which in Charlie's case, I mean, yes, his opinions, but also numbers and facts and science. So he was think of it from a business perspective, why that Democrat on your show a minute ago was envious of that, because he was smart enough to go in there and talk to them and make them feel heard. And look what happened. It absolutely changed the election. And then he had such an influence after the election with that transition team. When I was at Mar-a-Lago in December, he was there with Elon Musk and with Donald Trump, and he was having conversations to make sure that demographic remained heard. And that's where they hadn't been for so many years. So I've said it from day one with him. It was an honor. It was an honor to be on stages with him. I was so humbled. I thought, who am I? But he inspired me to not live in fear of having an opinion, of being true to myself, which others are allowed to, right? Unless you have that conservative viewpoint. I saw something that Dana Loesch, a conservative voice, said on Twitter. She said, they don't realize it. This is a couple of hours ago. They don't realize it, but they have just created 1 million more Charlie Kirks. I hope that's the case, because Charlie did so peacefully. He was never violent. He was never ugly with his words. He was strong and speaking opinions and fact, but he was never ugly. He was never divisive in that way. And I hope everybody on all sides can take a lesson from how he chose to do it and keeping God at the center of it.
Sage Steele, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on tonight. It was good to talk to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.